Maybe I can just toss it over to you and give a little bit of background of who are you, where you come from, what does Allentown mean to you, and a little bit of background for kicking this off.
I mean, my name is Michael Frassetto. I mean, Allentown's everything for me. I mean, it's what I call home. I never left. I don't intend on leaving. I mean, I love traveling and stuff, at different places of the world. I guess maybe better traveled than the average person. It's something that me and my wife really enjoy. But our roots are here in Allentown. I mean, we bought a home. Well, 7 years ago, we moved out to Brynigsville. All our work is still in Allentown. I do my nonprofit work, all my community service work I did for the last 14 years is all based in Allentown. I work with young people in Allentown. And I think we're going to be continuing to do that. We have no plans on leaving. We have plans of staying here and even digging our roots in even deeper. Yeah, I was born and raised in Allentown, and my dad he grew up around the Jordan Park area and in Whitehall. And then his dad was born and raised in Allentown by Jordan Street down by the Italian Club. His dad came over from Italy back in like 1910 or something like that. My mother's side she was the first one in her family to come over to America. She's Filipino. She came in the 1970s. They met at General Electric. They got together, had me and my sister, and we've been here ever since. So that's the love story there. Me and my wife, we met in school. We went to Parkland. All my cousins, we have 50 cousins on my Filipino side that went through Allentown School District. We were really the first ones to go to Parkland School District, me and my sister. We were always those kids in Parkland that had our connections were to Allentown, but we went to Parkland and we had a really close family. A lot of kids in Parkland never understood that about me and my sister, that our family was very close knit. But you go to Allentown, a lot of families are like that. It's just a cultural thing where their cousins or second or third cousins are called cousins, and their uncles and aunts and all different ages. And it wasn't too common in Parkland. And I remember some of my friends coming over to my family's house and seeing 15, 20 people there on like a Thursday night. And like, what the hell festival is this? And it was just a regular night, like every week. But yeah, Allentown is definitely home. Allentown is definitely home.
What is attractive about the city and the area of Allentown to you?
You know what, I think about that often. Really, I mean, the short answer is the people, whether it be the people in our families, my wife's family, my family. We're very close, and I couldn't imagine leaving them. Some people in my family that did leave, they said, you know what, I'm going to get out of here. Almost all of them end up coming back, after a year or 2, 3 years at the most. Maybe they come back and just had to come back to the family. Like, I feel home here. So me and my wife Arlene, we know that we don't even want to leave. We want to be close to our family. It's very important to us. Or then I could also say people, as in the other people, besides our family. Lots of all of our friends are from Allentown and still live here. Our gym that we go to is here, our gym friends. And when I do community service work and with the nonprofit that I run, Movement Moves Media, that's all with Allentown youth or young people in Bethlehem. So it's the people that keep me here. Yeah.
What does community mean to you, and how do you see that in Allentown?
Community is with the people and the connections and relationships that people have with one another. Yeah, it's not the skyscrapers and the building. It's the people who built those buildings, or the people that work in those buildings. That's what Allentown is. That's what this community is, and it's been like that for a long time. It's changing now. Well, it has been changing, since the 80s, but it started with all the industries, down by the river and stuff like that, and now that stuff ended, and now it's we went through a downward spiral, basically economically, 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and now we are starting now to come back out of it, maybe like 2010 and stuff with the NIS and everything. Some people say bad things about the NIS, some people say good things about the NIS, but I know one thing that's certain is to redevelop downtown and to attract new people into the city, we had to redevelop downtown. That we weren't going to attract outside people to come in with how it was built, like in the 1910s.
Right.
People aren't going to come to 100-year-old city that doesn't have any new attractions. So, the NIS was needed. It was a necessity, but I do believe it could improve. And, we'll get into that later about like the gap between the common citizens and the establishment in Allentown. I think that's really important too. that we'll discuss later. But I mean, it's the people. I mean, how many times have you been in Allentown? You know, you've been here in Allentown a long, long time, and it seems like everybody you know knows somebody else in this city that you know. We're like 1 degree, maybe 2 degrees at most separated. I want to get in touch with this person. Who knows that person? You could reach out to somebody that you know, or social media that you're connected to, or the family's names that they're related to somebody that you know, or really close friends growing up with somebody that you know. When people say it's a small world, it doesn't surprise me in Allentown. Allentown's a small city. You could see that whole Lehigh Valley area, like you said, just under 1 million people, and it's growing. But when you get to know the community and get to know the people, it's incredible how close knit the actual people are connected with one another. It's like they knew each other for generations.
Yeah, I mean, I want to circle back a little bit on that gap that you talked about between the different communities, and you know, how we've kind of seen this formulate is there's kind of four-ish different populations that are here in Allentown and certainly in the Valley, where the first is the German, Polish, Pennsylvania Dutch, you know, white people that have been here since early 1900s, have called it home, built the city for what it is and has been, you know, through the 1900s. And then the first, you know, wave of immigrants, a big Syrian population through the 70s and 80s, and then starting to see more of that Latinx, Hispanic population start, among many others, starting to come in through the 90s, and into the thousands. And then now you could argue the fourth population being, you know, the roughly 2011 to now individuals that are moving into the downtown area. And so those are, you know, four very disparate communities that need different things. And although they need different things, they all still need to be able to come together and build up the city, for each other. And so I don't know, maybe you could talk to how you see those communities, whether it's positives, negatives, things that need to change, or things that are working really well.
You hit it perfectly. You described it as the four different communities within our city. I seen both worlds growing up, because my dad's side of the family was the ones that came in the early 1900s. They were Italians. My mom was an immigrant that came over in the 1970s when she was 20. She came to the United States when she was 18. So you know, and two different cultural backgrounds. You know, I was lucky enough to be able to live through that, and I still have that as part of me today. So I got to be able to be connected with those two communities. And then you're right. Then there's other communities, and the newest one now is this new millennial business downtown type of resident that moved to the newly built downtown area. Yeah, that's the newest community. Because they're the newest, they're the most unknown right now. To me, I mean, it's just universal, accepting people. And I know a lot of people don't accept people, you know, on a whole. So, and that's what causes a lot of social issues sometimes, especially historically. But me growing up, maybe because of the way I was raised, accepting people, and the differences, and new people, accepting people was just a natural thing for me. So any of those, you know, different communities that you mentioned, you know, I accept all of them. And they're very interesting to me. I want to get to know them more, especially this newest generation that, or community that is moving in now. You know what? I would also add in, if I could add anything in, I would say besides those four different communities, you could also split it up in a different way too. That I think is also fair, and that's and this is just universal for the world. And I mean, some people call it the haves and have nots. Some people call it in the clique of the establishment and then the common citizens. I mean, culturally, in how globally we are right now, you're going to get very different cultures and communities within one city, but you're always going to have this establishment class, that kind of makes the decisions, and then the bottom 90%, that are what would be referred to as like the common citizens. And I think that's where the biggest gap is in this city, is that the establishment is having a tough time communicating and responding to the differences of these new communities that you mentioned. And there's a big disconnect, I think, even culturally and maybe socioeconomically as well. It's an uncomfortable and awkward situation that has caused tensions already in the city for decades. But I feel those tensions are increasing in the last 10 years. And then for the first time, I mean, this is something you said in the beginning, for the first time, I believe in the city's history, what you see is the common citizens being able to unite and start to go for some of those, especially politically, maybe not financially yet, but politically, they're starting to go for some of those decision-making positions, elected positions in the city. And for the first time, what I consider in the city's history, they have a real fighting chance to dethrone the establishment, if you want to use that term, or defeat them in those positions for the first time in the city's history. I felt that brewing for the last 10 years, and we're at this point. And that's why you said too, this election in 2021 is probably one of the most important ever in the history of the city.
What's an aspect that you feel like the city could do to be more appealing?
The city can do, there's always ways to improve. And that's what the fight is always for. I mean, here in the United States, our standard of living is considerably higher than many other countries in the world. But the fight is always, how can we improve it? How can we improve our community? And Allentown can. And historically, one of the things that always has improved a certain city or a certain region of a country or the world is new industry. So one thing that the city can do is attract new industry to this area. There's probably more, and this is just one example that I could give right now, but probably the best example that I can give right now is a new industry. And right now, that would be cannabis. I see cannabis as the green gold right now. I mean, you see you see different states do it. I've been to Colorado, I've been to California, Washington. Like I've seen how it changed communities. And it does, even the state budget, it changes drastically. So here we are in this huge state, Pennsylvania, and we're struggling to even get something passed at the state level, where 75% of the residents think that it should be adult use recreational.
Yeah.
And yet we don't even have a real legit proposal yet at the state level. We had HB 350 that Dale and Leach wrote, but nothing else after that. And that didn't even really get onto the floor. Again, this is only one example of new industry, but once it does get passed, it's imperative that the city be very open, zoning laws, business-friendly laws to allow that new industry to operate in our community. That's huge. And then when you talk about the other side, another thing that the city can do, I would always say, investing in the youth. I mean, I was a teacher here, investing in young people is huge, connecting them with resources, not just going, oh, cool, it's young people doing good things in the city. No, actually connect them to real things that could affect their careers. Unions and trades have something more streamlined. So, hey, if college ain't your thing and you don't want to do the military, you could learn a really good trade that could really earn you a really good living. And when you connect young people like that, instead of them leaving or not producing enough good amount economically here in the city, I mean, you could really have them stay here then because they got connected to a good career. I think that's very important. And then again, the arts, music and the arts is just something that can entertain people, that when they're here, they say, hey man, this city is fun. We got the arts, we got the music, we could go out and have a good time, listen to some good tunes and a good local vibe of local musicians. That is some entertainment that is needed in the city that is untapped right now. Allentown used to have a great music scene and it went away, 40 years ago, but it's starting to come back. And I mean, that's part of the reason why we started Movement Moves Media, and being connected with the local music scene and art scene is super important to give them a platform to serve their city with the talents that they naturally have. That alone would want people to be like, wow, like just think if you went downtown right now, it's dead. But what if it was like you went downtown and on every corner you had music, Every outside restaurant, you had music playing, and local too. And you had arts where you look, see, and somebody's doing art. There's a little art display everywhere you walk downtown. Maybe not even downtown, maybe other places too, other parks in the city. But it's a vibe that I saw, especially when I went down to New Orleans and I saw it. I thought it was a festival on a Tuesday afternoon. I was like, oh, what holiday is this? And it was just, and then the next day was the same way, and the next day was the same way too. What if Allentown was like that? We have the talent here, we have the resources here. We're just not doing it. I think what we're doing wrong is we're prioritizing things that we shouldn't really be prioritizing, at least maybe moving the priority list around a little bit. I mean, spending another $1.3 million on a police budget that's already 34% of the city budget, I don't see that as necessary. Maybe using it more effectively might be right, and using that $1.4 million somewhere else. Spending another $150,000 on Christmas lights when you have 100 homeless residents that are sleeping outside this winter. Maybe that $150,000 could have been prioritized differently than buying Christmas lights. It's just something to ponder.
No, I definitely hear that loud and clear. So if I could get you just, give your good Allentown Strong, or We Are Allentown Strong, or something like that. The idea is, as we go through these videos, we'll be taking clips of like kind of back to back of people saying it. You know what I'm saying? And if you want, after that, if you want to close out with any final thoughts, comments, concerns, whatever it may be, the floor is yours.
Allentown Strong. I just want to say, thanks for the opportunity, man. The work you do is great. Being able to pass on resources that I have to you, and resources that you're connected to the work that I do. I mean, that's, we talked about community. That's how connections are made. That's how helping more people and being more impactful in the community can be. Instead of just being able to reach the network that you have, being able to go into somebody else's network and affect those people too. And then having both those networks come together at an event when that usually wouldn't happen. That's how you make good relationships in the city. And I think possibly if we had more good relationships in the city between citizens and residents, more of the social issues that our city suffers from wouldn't be around.
Love it. Really appreciate your time here today, Mike. Look forward to the stuff that we get to do, hopefully together in the future. And hey, enjoy your Friday night.
All right, man. You too. Thanks again. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, of course. Talk soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.